This man took the lives of his parents and kept it secret for 6 years. Oh, hi there, stranger. Today I'm going to be telling you about the case of Roderick and Mark Newall. Viewer discretion, as always, is advised. Nicholas and Elizabeth Newall met in the seaside town of St Andrews, northeast of Edinburgh. They fell in love and got married in the early 60s and went on to have 2 sons together. They were a wealthy and successful couple who liked to travel. Nicholas had a past in investment and property. He was a prominent businessman in Jersey, where the family would eventually settle. He started out in education, but both he and Elizabeth were from wealthy families, and so he was able to pursue different careers. Elizabeth was a supply teacher and later a caring and devoted mother to her 2 sons. Their first son, Roderick, was born in or around 1965, shortly followed by his brother Mark. In 1968, the family set sail for the West Indies with the intention of settling there. On their way there, they stopped on the island of Jersey, and there are mixed reports as to why they stopped there. They either had a nanny on board that became sick, or they stopped in Jersey to collect a nanny. But either way, they stopped there and they decided to stay and basically never left. So the West Indies was out and Jersey was in. Their property was a grand home in Greve de Lec, and their 2 sons lived a privileged life growing up. They were sent to boarding school, first Lockers Park Prep School and then on to Radley College, which is a very prestigious and very expensive school. Their father, Nicholas, was a stern and traditional man, strict on upholding the family values. Roderick was an intelligent but troubled young man who reportedly developed issues around authority and struggled with discipline. He was convicted of a substance offence, but details are scarce. His relationship with his father became strained as he got older, and it seems that there was some built-up resentment towards Nicholas. It would appear that of the 2 brothers, Roderick was the more rebellious. In contrast, Mark was described as more disciplined and reserved. From what I've read, Mark seems to have got along well with both parents. At some point in the mid to late 80s, the parents downsized from the big house to a bungalow, still in Jersey. Fast forward to an evening in October 1987, and all the family were in Jersey to celebrate Elizabeth's 48th birthday. Roderick was 22 at the time, Mark 21. So they had their meal all together and then returned home, and then Mark left. Roderick stayed behind having a drink and a chat with his parents, but that chat turned into an argument that then became violent. Roderick used rice flails, otherwise known as nunchucks, and beat his father to death with them. He did the same to his mother, although he would later claim that he didn't have much memory of that. After he had taken the lives of his parents, he called his brother Mark and confessed, saying that he had nothing left to do now but to take his own life. Mark persuaded him to wait, and he headed back to the bungalow. Side note, I don't know where Mark went to, and I did question why he would leave the celebration meal instead of staying behind like his brother did, but I suppose there could be 100 legitimate reasons for that. I did find that quite odd because, as far as I know, Mark wasn't living in Jersey at the time, and it would have been quite late in the evening. I don't know the details. Like I say, I don't know where he went to, and I'm not trying to point the finger. I just wondered why. So when Mark arrived back to the bungalow, he claimed he found Roderick with their father's firearm and again talked him down. I suppose Mark had a split-second decision to make, and he chose to support his brother. So they took their own parents' bodies to Greve de Lec and buried them. They used a rental van for this gruesome task, having wrapped the remains in tarpaulin. They cleaned the bungalow so as to erase all signs of foul play, and then they concocted a story, one that they stuck to for years. And they would eventually come into their inheritance of nearly £1 million. And then they went on like nothing had happened. And honestly, stranger, they might have got away with it, but it seems as though Roderick was weighed down by his guilty conscience. And so sometime around 92, he confessed to his aunt and his uncle, Stephen Newall, who was his father's twin brother. This confession sparked a renewed investigation by Jersey police. Roderick got on his toes and fled to Spain, where he was located in early 93 and dramatically arrested by a Navy frigate before being transported to Gibraltar. You see, Jersey is not a sovereign state, it's a crown dependency, and so Spain refused to extradite there. Gibraltar is, of course, an overseas British territory, and so this helped to bridge the jurisdictional gap. The transfer to Gibraltar was clever and potentially helped to avoid years of appeals and immunity. And because he was now back in British hands, Roderick was extradited back to Jersey around October 93. Although, to be fair, I don't know how accurate that is, because I did see one report that said that Roderick had stayed in Gibraltar for around 18 months and that Mark was financially helping him to stay there. Perhaps the 18 months was the overall period from investigation to court, but I'm not sure. Either way, he went to trial in early 94, although he did plead guilty and give a confession. He basically described a drunken argument and attacking his father with the nunchucks. He said he remembered him falling. He said when he regained memory, he was sitting in the hallway and he went looking for his father, who he found without a pulse and realised he was dead. In a panic, he went looking for his mother, whose body he found in her bedroom, and that was when he realised he'd taken the lives of both of his parents. He said his feelings of guilt and remorse had built up over time and that he found it increasingly difficult to live a life. He also said, quote, "I have still not understood how I was capable of committing those horrific crimes. I think it was probably caused by the bitter childhood memories awakened by the argument. I'm sorry Mark is suffering when his only involvement was after the killings and to help protect me." Roderick was sentenced to life, which is mandatory under Jersey law, but much like England, that doesn't necessarily mean forever, and in this case, it didn't. Roderick served around 13 years before being released on licence. He came straight out and into a job as a lecturer at Chichester College, right here in Hampshire. Mark Newall was sentenced to 6 years for his part in the crimes and served around 3. Nicholas and Elizabeth Newall's bodies were recovered when Roderick took the police to find them. May they both rest in peace. What a horrific way to go out at the hands of your own child. And that is the horrific case of Roderick and Mark Newall. Please, strangers, let me know what you think of this one in the comments. Do you think that Roderick and Mark were telling the truth about the situation? Do you think Roderick served enough time in prison? Do you really think that he came forward because he was being eaten alive by guilt, or did he think the net was closing in? I am so interested to know your opinions on this one. And as always, if you've stayed with me up until now, then thank you for watching. If you've got any story suggestions, drop them in the comments for me, and I will see you for the next one.